strike up.
Hi, this is James Devine with the Music Ed Podcast. Hey, I'd love to send you my free training, 7 tips to save 5 hours this week and every week. If you'd like to receive that, send me an email at jamesthedivine@gmail.com. Also, if your music event needs professional development or speaker, get in touch with me. I'd love to help out. Enjoy the podcast.
Where you get quick and easy tips on how to be a better band teacher.
Let's start with the definition of legally blind. A lot of people don't quite understand exactly what it means when they say that they have a blind student. So one of the definitions says that legal blindness occurs when a person has central visual acuity, vision that allows a person to see straight ahead of them, of 20/200 or less in his or her better eye with correction. So that's basically saying, so for example, I have vision of 20/350, but I'm able to correct that to 20/20. So if I have my contacts out or I'm not wearing my glasses, I can still see and get around. I just cannot, I wouldn't be able to drive in that case, and people would be hard to recognize across the street, but I could still see across the street and see that there's a person there. But legally blind, they're only able to correct it to that point. So that means without their correction, then their vision is probably more. So when you talk about having a blind student, there's a broad range of that happening. So you can have someone who's legally blind, they could still see and walk around and get around school or their home or whatever. And then there's some people who have absolutely no vision, and you have everything in between. Some people can just distinguish light and dark, and some people don't even have that. So there's a big range of that. But you say, well, how can I help my student who is visually impaired? And that's a better way to describe it. For example, instead of saying my blind student, start with the student first. So a student who is visually impaired. The first thing you might do is have a conversation with the student, with their parent, with their other teachers, and then that way you can get a better feel for the things that they're working on, the struggles that they have, the ways that you can help, the things that other teachers and the parents have found that have helped, and that can be something that helps you out a lot. I'll share a little bit from my experience. So I haven't had any students of my own who had visual impairment, but I have given some private lessons to several students who my friend Julie, who teaches at the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind, who she has brought over for private lessons. I live right down the street from that school. What I have found is that the students that she has brought me have been highly motivated. She uses some type of program where she can translate the music to them into Braille. And now, when you think that what you're going to do with Braille is that you're not going to be able to, in most cases, read the Braille while you're playing your instrument, but you're going to learn the music through that. So it's just a way of learning the music, and most of these students will end up memorizing the music. One of the strategies I used for the students that I had was I would record an MP3 for them and send that home with them or email it to them or to their parents, and that was helpful to them too. So an MP3 file of me playing a demonstration of the music that they are trying to learn. It did not take me very long at all. So for the things I would need for a 30-minute lesson, it would take me 5 minutes to record their assignment for that week to take home with them. So that was very helpful for me. I have found that, and Julie has told me, that almost all of these students end up with the gift of perfect pitch. And that ends up being really a good way for them to learn music. It's sort of like their ears have compensated for their visual impairment. And that helps them a lot with learning the music and also with tuning and hearing the pitches for that. There have been times where I didn't teach how to play a new note to a student, and they just figured it out on their own because they were able to hear it in their head and hear it and figure out that if I move these fingers, it's going to create that note for me. There was one time when the previous school I worked at, a couple of previous schools ago, where I was in charge of a band festival, and I left that school, and I found out later that when they had the festival, the guest director was not very proactive in looking for what the needs of the students were. So there was a visually impaired student who was part of the festival after I had left, and they didn't see if the visually impaired student needed help or if they could somehow help them out to assign a student to work with them. And so if you're ever in charge of a festival, or if you have a student who is visually impaired, think about some ways you can make things easier for them. It might involve the layout of your room so that there's less potential to trip somewhere. It might be assigning them a mentor or peer friend so that they can help them out with that. I encourage you to look up the Ohio School for the Blind. They have a marching band that is very successful, and how they work that out is the students have a shadow who marches behind them and helps guide them, and that person learns the show also. So I'm not sure who these people are, if they're volunteers or other students or parents or a combination of all of those people. Think about also, who are your allies in this? You can look for the SPED teacher and get some insight from them, because they probably have some training in these sort of things and can help you out and help you to learn what you would need to learn. And you might also contact the music teacher at your local school for the blind. I think most states have one, and they are going to be a great resource. I have learned so much from my friend, and she was on the podcast about 140 episodes ago. So I'm not sure what episode that was, but if you want to look through the archives, if I can find it, I may post that in the show note links. This episode has been sponsored by Adulting 101. Why don't they teach that at school, you might say? These are all the things like how to change the oil, how to cook simple foods, simple things like that you can learn. And you can find out more and get some free lessons at adulting411.net.
The music and podcast, where you get quick and easy tips for how to be a better band.